Hey gang, we're in the sunroom today. Don't mind the mess, I live here. Because I am going to warp my loom today. I'm just using my rigid heddle, which is right here. You'll get a better look at it as we get going. And that's so we can use this bin of yarns. These are all Yeet for yarns. And we're going to start weaving. This is the heddle we're going to be using. And for yarn, I have this cone of silver gray wild silk. So it's 100% silk. It's going to be very strong for the warp, but it's also relatively fine. So we can do a weft face weaving where we're not really going to see the warp. But if it does show through, it'll be this beautiful silvery gray that really goes with anything. It's one of the most perfect neutrals. So the first thing we need to do is warp the loom, so I'm going to get set up to do that, and I will be back. All right, the first thing we have to do is a little bit of math. I need to know how many dents per inch my reed is. So apparently I've marked this at center at 1 point, so I'll put my 1 inch there. Okay, so that's 1 inch. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dpi. It's actually doubled, so that would be 10 dpi. So next we have to figure out and how wide we want our project to be. Let's do just a small piece, and if we keep them all the same size, we can stitch them together in the end to make long pieces of fabric. All right, so the angle's a little awkward, but basically this is the back bar of our loom, and we will need to warp onto that. So I'm going to take my thread and go all the way down here because this is how long I want it to be. So first thing I'm going to do is tie my thread to my warping pole, which I have strapped to this bookcase. And it looks like Bobo thinks he's going to help. So we just take our fiber, hold on. Need to put that on a different peg so it'll turn easier. There we go. All right. So I want to center around this part right here. So I'm going to start here. And we want to always go the same way. So we're going to come up. Then we're going to take our warp all the way down here and go over our pole the other way, because we want our fresh string to be coming from the right. All right, now let me just fix this over here. There we go. All right, then we go put this on the other side. All right, then we go around. And we come back down. And we always want to go the same direction, so we're going to go up. So we have 6 there. We come back here. Going to put this down to the floor. Okay. We always want our, hold on, I've made a mess. There we go. All right. Now let me see. Okay, so this is going to my bobbin. So then we haul up this one, then we come off. It's probably easier if I kept my cone down at this end, But you know, I'm just not that smart. Okay, so now technically that's our 10, 4 and 4. But that just doesn't seem dense enough. Let me have a look at this. I am hopeless at this, okay? I'm a very amateur weaver, so just bear with me. I think we should make this much denser in the middle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take off the last 2 loops. Hello, Bubble. Which would be this one and this one. And we're going to try to do this without tangling all our yarn. Okay, there's our loop. And we will pull that off. Move it over and bring it back. Let's stop messing around. We'll take our comb down here where it's supposed to be. There we go. All right. So we will go around. So if we're going 10 DPI and we want something that is 6 inches wide and we need 60. There's where my math problems came in. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24. Six, 64. Oh, I was only supposed to go to 60. Oh well. 66. Oh boy. 68. We're going to go to 72. 71, 68, 70, and 72. All right. So we've got this all onto our thingy. You know, that thingy, our warping pig. Now, where did I put my scissors? They're there. Okay. So I'm going to tie this end here. Oh, you know what I did wrong? I tied to the warping peg. I should have tied to the back bar. This is what happens when you don't weave on your rigid heddle loom for over a year, and you forget all the details. So you guys get to discover along with me how much of an idiot I can be. All right. Let's figure out which one is tied on down here. Now we're just going to cut that one off and then tie it up here. So we'll have an odd number of threads. Maybe. See, I don't know why I do videos on this stuff when I haven't done a refresher course, because, you know, I'm a bonehead, honestly. But what the heck? Just to prove to you that nobody is perfect. This is real life. I do forget stuff. I am no expert. I'm just an amateur having fun and showing you what I do in hopes that you may enjoy seeing just how chaotic I am. Honestly, nobody's perfect, and anybody who pretends to be is lying. Although they might be more experienced than I am. That's fair. I would accept that. I see you lurking down there, Bob. I'm just waiting to attack everything. All right, so I'm going to take this bit of string here. I'm going to go down here. I'm just going to do a figure 8 around these threads, just to kind of keep them in order. I'm going to tie a knot. Because the next step is we're going to put it onto the back bar. So now that I have that tied, I'm going to pull it off of there. And I'm going to use my body knotty just to wind it up so I can get a little closer. It's very handy if you have a second person to assist you with this part, but I do not. So I will do it by myself. So when we get to where it's going to overlap on itself, I have these handy cardboard strips. They're going to go in there and just keep the strands from tucking in amongst each other and mucking with your layout. Get in there. Okay. Now you can use cardboard and just go all the way around with it, which I think I might do. I have a couple of old placemats that I'm going to use to tuck under it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this back off. I'm going to do a better job. Warping your loom is the place to take your time, because otherwise you'll be fighting with it all along. So I'm going to try spreading these out a little more. And I'm going to grip my fiber further back so I'm not bunching it up on the floor. All right, let's get this to our back bar. And I'm just going to shake the fibers a bit, comb them out to get them a little more even. I just wanted to get that up there so we have that grip. So what we're going to do is going to throw the placemat in there and pinch it. And you can see how it helps the fibers to lie flatter and not crumple into each other. Alright, now you can see how the fiber's getting all bunched up. Let's try to spread this out a little bit. Now, the disadvantage of these vinyl things is they're pushing back. They don't want to be curled. Now, after they've been on the loom for a little bit, they will take that shape and it'll work even better. But this first time, it's going to be a bear. So this is how to do a very bad job warping your loom. You're welcome. Oh boy. Miserable failure. Miserable. Alright, I'm going to spread it out a bit here. And I'm just about at the end. So. Oof, that was a mess. Okay, that's close enough. So what I'm going to do. Now, when you're weaving, there always seems to be so much waste. So what I do is I keep all my cuttings and I use them for stuffing stuffed animals. I use them for small bits and pieces in amigurumi. Like, I always find a use for them because there's always a lot of waste. And I messed this up so badly, there's going to be even more waste on this one because I am not untangling all of that. So I'm going to go right here and I'm going to snip it all off, but I am going to keep all this for use, other uses. All right. Spread it out a bit. All right. I'm going to have crossed warp threads in the whole 9 yards. I have made myself a mess. Yay! As you can tell, I'm just hideously upset by how badly I've done this. Nothing really fizzes me. I'm just like, yeah, whatever. We'll work with it. All right, let's get to slaying our reed. I have my hook here, and I have my mess here, and I have the middle of my reed marked. So this is why I should have spread it out better as I was putting it onto my back bar. So we have 71. I'm going to take the time to kind of spread these out a little better in hopes of saving this because I've made a mess. So to anybody out there who actually weaves, I apologize for being such a train wreck. But you can just laugh at me. It's fine. I don't mind. Let's get them spread out a little better. Now let's do some counting. We had 71, so half of 70 would be 35. So we're going to find our 36th thread. 34. This would be our 36th thread. All right, so we will spread these out on both sides. We will grab our reed hook. And our first one is going to go in this slot right here. So we'll pull that through. All right, now next we're going to go one to the left. Grab our next thread and pull it through the eye. Then one to the right. Grab our next thread and pull it through. And we're just going to work our way all the way across the loom, working through a slot, then a hole, then a slot and a hole, but we're going to go back and forth so that I can see where I mucked up already. I missed a hole. So I will just pull it through the right one. There we go. The correct one, I should say. So I'm going to work my way across, threading all these holes. And you don't need to listen to me curse and swear while I do this, so I'll just put you on time lapse. Hey guys, this is VoiceOver Tammy. Somehow I managed to lose all the audio for this section. So I'm just going to try to explain it as we go. So what I have to do now is I have to take my warp and I need to tension it onto my front bar so that we're ready for weaving. So what I have to do is first wind up the excess onto the back bar. So I have just enough left to tie onto that piece on the front bar. So you can see here, I'm going to take it, let it fall down. I'm going to comb it all out so it's all nice and even and not tangled. And I'm going to start roughly in the middle. I'm going to take a strand from the eye and the slot on either side, and I'm going to go over the back bar, front bar, whatever you want to call it, come up from the bottom and tie a knot. And now I'm going to sneeze. Hold on a second. Phew! I'm not editing that out because it's too hard to try to do voiceover to video already. So next I'm going to go to the left side
And I'm going to do the same thing. Take four strands, two each from the eyes and the slots, keeping everything even. Go over the back bar, then separate the threads on the bottom, come up over the top. Oh, hold on, I got the wrong threads, so I've got to sort that out. There we go. This is the time to make sure that you have all your threads sorted properly. So then I come up from the bottom, and I'm just tying a simple knot for now, just a half knot, so that I can adjust the tension once I have them all tied on. And then I'm going to go now to the other side and tie that one on. So same thing, an eye in a slot, pull it back to the strap, separate them to make sure they're nice and straight, go over that, come up from the bottom, separate the threads, and then just tie an overhand knot on the top, just to kind of hold it in place for now. And we will correct all the tensioning after we have all our threads tied on to our front bar. Wow, I really gave that one a heave. All right, so we're going to go to the next one, and then we'll go back to the other side and back and forth until magically they're all done. Woohoo! So now that we have them all tied on, we need to tension our warp. So in order to do that, we need to get it pulled back onto our front bar so that we're working with the actual tension of our weaving. So now I'm just feeling this. This is not something you can really see very well. You have to feel it, because when you feel the individual strands, you can feel how some of them are not as tight as the others, and you can make corrections across your warp so you can get it all at the same tension so that you don't have little dips and dives in your weaving. And all I'm doing here is I'm just tightening across as I go. And being an uncoordinated dumbass as usual, see, the knot came untied, so I'm going to have to retie that one. But it's not as bad because all the other ones are already tied, so they will hold everything in place while I futz around with this because, you know, malcoordination is my strong suit, much like gibberish is my first language. So I'll get that tied on. And then I'm just going to work my way across until I have all my tension feeling good. So now what I want to do is I want to wind that onto my front bar so I'm ready to start weaving. So I'm just loosening up the warp at the back bar so I can wind it onto the front. Now with this particular loom, the piece of wood that the warp is tied to needs to lie flat against the winding bar. So that's what I'm doing here, is just trying to get it to lie flat, because the plastic pieces tend to want to, you know, spring as plastic does. So it can be a little tricky to get that bar to lie flat. So I got it there. Now I just need something to keep my warp strands separated. So I have these lovely pieces of cardboard that just happen to be wide enough. This is probably one of my favorite widths to work with on the loom, I guess. So I need to loosen off that warp again so that I can get that cardboard underneath so that it wraps around and cushions the warp. So there we go, we got that in. Now we're going to have to tighten it again. There's a lot of futzing with tightening and loosening and loosening and tightening. Right there, I'm just trying to curve that cardboard a little bit. Now I probably should have trimmed off all those ends from tying it on just to get them out of the way. But I didn't, because this entire weaving process was some kind of cursed, I think, as you'll see as we go on. Like, we lost audio here, and my warp is horrible. So next we want to separate our warp. So I'm just grabbing some yarn I have. It's a fairly bulky yarn, and I'm just going to use this to help separate the warp. Now, because the warp is tight, getting that heddle over to the working side can be a little bit tricky. That's why you're seeing me put it flat. Now I'm going to open the top shed. I'm going to grab my stick shuttle, and I'm going to use that just to push that. Oh, look, there's Bobo. Just to push that yarn through the shed. Now I'm going to pull it down to the bottom, and I'm not going to beat it, not yet. I'm going to go down to the lower shed, open that up. Now, working from the same side, I'm going to grab that yarn and I'm going to push a double strand through. Now, there's two reasons for this. The double strand will help the warp to separate out quicker. And if you do everything from the same side, when you're done your weaving, because this is not part of your weaving, this is just spacing. And we're going back to the top shed without beading. Because this is just a spacer, we want to be able to pull it out, and you can reuse it if you want. So after we're done, you just grab it from that side and pull, and it all just pops out. And there you go. You've got yarn to reuse for your next weaving to space your warp. So I'm just pulling everything down nice and snug, making sure everything is all even. And then I believe I'm going to do, yeah, now we're going to beat. So now look at the warp between the reed and the front bar. You can see how it's already starting to spread out a little more evenly, which is what the goal of this is just to get that warp to lie nice and even and flat. So we're going to go another round because it can be much better. So again, from the same side, we're going to go through the top shed, pull that down to the bottom. Now I'm just being way pickier here than I think I need to be. Just slap it through. And then down to the lower shed. Now every time I'm pushing this through, I am getting a double strand of yarn, which is going to increase the bulk of it to help that warp spread out quicker. If you use the thin yarn, it's going to take you a lot longer to get that warp to spread out the way you want. All right, one more in the top shed. And again, just work always from the same side. We'll get that through. And now we're going to beat this, but we're going to beat it like you would never beat warp. I am literally like yanking as hard as I can on this just to shove that down nice and tight and hard. And now when you look, our warp is separated quite lovely, and we are all ready to start weaving. Yay! Warping the loom is the worst.
All right, so I just started filming my weaving video and my camera died. So I'm onto my second yeet for yarn on the weaving here, but I wanted to show you, it all looks so tidy, right? Until you look behind the reed. This is why I need to get better at warping my loom. You can see all the tangles in the threads going every which way. I also have a big ball in the middle that's changing the tension on those threads, so that when you look here, you can actually see how it's coming up in the middle because those ones are looser off the ball. So needless to say, it's not my best weaving project, but it is reminding me of the things I need to know. And you can see how bad it got right here. And I'm not going to be able probably to fit them all onto this warp. So my next warping, I will be more careful, and we'll come back and watch that one too, so you can get an idea of how to do it when you're not messing up every single step of the process. All right, I'll be back. We've moved into the studio for more consistent lighting, so I can show you the Yeet for yarn weaving. Let me just get it all set up here. Okay, let's have a look. This was week 1. And you can hear Bobble climbing the tower, kicking at it as usual. It's his favorite pastime. All right, so there's week 1, or week 1, Yeet 1. Here's Yeet 2. Let you get a close-up look. Goes to there. Now, this is Yeet 3. Now this was I believe super coiled with locks, and you can see how when you weave it, it gives it a more, I don't know, smooth yet textured look. I really like the way it comes out in a weaving. All right, and this one goes on forever. This was Yeet 4. And you can see how those colors just give like beautiful pops in the middle of all those bands. It turned out so pretty. All right, and Yeet 5 was this one. And it had the little embellishments in it. So what I did was when I would come to one of these in the weaving is before I would beat down the strands, I would pop these between the warps so that they would sit on the surface as opposed to being buried in the yarn. Okay, that was 1, 2, 3, 4. This would be Yeet number 5. So this was a super coil. Now look with beads. See a bead popping out there? This turned out so pretty. I love the way super coils look in weaving. If I'd warped my loom properly, then those warp threads would probably all disappear into the super coils. But the advantage is there's a big helicopter coming by. It's very smooth for such a textured yarn. It's quite lovely. Look at the way those colors look. I love that. Okay, and that was Yeet 6, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That was Yeet 6. And this was the first week of the Advent Yeet for yarn. I ran out of warp, so I couldn't use all my Advent Yeets, but I got this one on. And you can see how splitting those colors into two different things, two different colorways, two different piles, allowed it to not become like a muddy mess. I think it turned out quite pretty. And again, I just popped the embellishments between the warps before I would beat down the yarn so that they sit on the surface. So there we go. That is my Yeet for yarn weaving. And I'm thinking this would make a pretty decent scarf. Be nice, bright, and colorful. It does need to be washed, soften it up a little bit. So if you have like a bunch of art yarns or small skeins you don't know what to do with, weaving them up is actually a good idea, because like with the super coils, you know how little yardage we got, but look at how big of a patch of weaving you can do with it. Now I just wove these in the order that they were spun, but if you wanted to, you could match up your colors a little better. Like you could go that to that and stick this bright one with this bright one. Like you could match up your colorways better to make it a little more cohesive if you don't like the pure chaos like I do. But in general, it's very fun, and it made for very interesting fabric. Now I just have to do my ends and give it a wash, and it will be ready to go. I'm so excited. It turned out so cool. I mean, my weaving technique is absolutely hideous because I haven't done it in so long. But now that I've got my loom up and going, I might just rewarp it and keep weaving because it's fun. And I have so many yarns to use. But I would probably go wider than this and actually make some fabric I can make something with. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this little adventure with our Yeet for yarn yarns. I just love how this one turned out. It's so pretty. Look at how pretty it is. Anyways, if you liked it, you know, do the stuff down below. You know how it goes. And then you won't miss it when I do stuff like this, because I do stuff like this all the time. Thanks for joining me, guys. I'll see you on the next one.